Now, I want to take a couple of minutes to reflect on CAPLA's 2015 RPL QA manual, which forms the basis of many of the discussions happening over the next 2 days. You might have heard the manual described as the gold standard in assessing and recognizing learning, where the bar is set impossibly high. Not at all. Others may see the manual as useful in reaffirming their existing RPL processes and procedures. Our hope is that the manual will continue to provide meaningful goals and to improve quality in RPL practice, thereby creating more effective pathways for Canadians, for all Canadians, to get the recognition that they deserve. All learning, regardless of where it was acquired, is valuable, it's worthy of our respect, and deserves to be recognized and assessed in appropriate ways. Before we're proceeding this morning, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who participated in this year's sponsorship program. Our sponsorships include the Government of Ontario, Yukon Advanced Education, Northwest Territories Education, Culture and Employment, the Government of Nunavut, Kwantlen Polytechnic University, the Ontario Council on Articulation and Transfer, and cancred.ca. All of our sponsors are listed in your program and on designated signage near the registration desk, and we're sincerely grateful for their support. I also want to recognize an outstanding board of directors. I'm sorry. And I want to also mention that a number of people are finishing their terms, and we will have new board members coming in this evening. So it's a bit of a sea change for us in the CAPLA board. But board members here this morning include Leah Moss from Quebec. Please just stand and wave. There you are. Leah Moss, Deb Blower from Manitoba, Jennifer Archer from Nova Scotia, way over there. Karen Wally, Northwest Territories, Eileen Kelly-Freak from Newfoundland, Sharon Brown from Alberta, Sharon, there she is right there, Chip Dickinson from Nova Scotia, Chip, and Frank, who you've already met. Two board members who are on, thank you, two board members who are unable to be with us. And that they are Amanda Roberts from Alberta and Barb Gustafson from Saskatchewan. So a big round for the whole board. Now, it's time for our first shout out. You know who you are that's going to do it. Up you go, introduce yourself, and away we go.
Okay. ASA was established in 1980, I think I've said this part already, and today represents more than 30 member agencies providing services to newcomers and refugees across Alberta. Since its inception, ASA has been dedicated to improving the settlement and integration services its members provide to newcomers. And to this end, I think that's where I left off, ASA furthers the development of settlement practitioners through its training and certification programs and promotes the recognition of settlement and integration work as a profession. ASA is proud to be the first organization in Canada to provide certification for settlement practitioners. Beginning in 1985, ASA recognized that there was inadequate training opportunities for settlement practitioners, and over time, ASA developed the Settlement Practitioner Competency Framework and a list of training modules that address those competencies. That list continues to provide the basis of the training programs that exist today. Oh, I shouldn't have run up here. The competencies are regularly reviewed and validated to ensure the relevance of ASA's training programs to current settlement practice. Settlement practitioners in Alberta are encouraged and supported by ASA and their member agencies to seek certification. When applying for certification, practitioners are required to submit an application portfolio to the certification committee to demonstrate a combination of documented experience, training, knowledge, and skills. ASA's certification committee uses an RPL process to approve relevant training beyond that provided by ASA. With growing interest nationally in the settlement and integration sector, ASA continues to play an important leadership role in Alberta to effectively support sector capacity to serve newcomers. When CAPLA launched the Quality Assurance Manual last year, ASA recognized the opportunity to examine and refine our understanding of RPL assessment in our own work, and the implications that understanding might have for building leadership capacity and more broadly for supporting positive employment outcomes for newcomers. To support this community of practice work, on September 22nd of this year, Bonnie Kennedy was invited to attend ACE's certification meeting to give an overview of CAPLA's work and the manual, introduce the RPL self-audit checklists and steps to quality RPL for the committee to consider. Jennifer Bertrand presented ASAT's competency-based assessment model, their quality assurance review, and gave some tangible examples of how she used the manual checklists to work through a self-audit of their RPL processes. The presentations offered a great springboard for discussion regarding how ASA might use the manual to perform a self-audit and build the capacity of the certification committee as we deepen our own understanding of our RPL through reflection on our practice as we review settlement practitioner portfolios. By engaging in an RPL self-audit process, the certification committee intends to maintain certification and professional standards to a national level and to reflect on how RPL might be applied more broadly across the membership to the benefit of settlement staff, leadership, and the newcomers we are committed to serve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to offer a couple of remarks about this year's boot camp and how it'll work. So today's workout will include 5 45-minute strength-building RPL stations which focus on the 5 need-to-know areas of RPL. Those areas are tools, systems, assessment, advising and career counseling, and public policy. Everyone will have the opportunity to visit each station throughout the day. You will see important details about where you start and room allocations on page 6 in your printed program, and Bonnie will be giving us one update on that. Even though you may work in one particular area of RPL, for example, you may be an assessor, we believe that all 5 areas of RPL are relevant and important to quality RPL practice. We expect that the station leaders will stretch your thinking, gosh, we're going with the metaphor, strengthen your skills, and build capacity within your professional practice. It's now time to introduce the 5 station leaders who have joined us from across the country. And I would ask that they stand while I call their names, and I'm sure you're going to agree at the end of the day that they are indeed a distinguished group and arguably among Canada's most accomplished RPL practitioners. Oh, sorry. Are you imposters? You're encouraged to read their biographies in our program. So on tools, Gail Hall. With systems, Deb Blower. Assessment, Phil Mondor. Advising and career counseling, Mark Gallup. And on public policy, Anne-Marie Lysing. There they are. So you're going to hear a great deal more from these folks during the rest of the day. What they do is definitely, it overlaps. And I want to make sure that you understand that that is intentional, because together it creates a really comprehensive look at what an RPL system needs to have to truly work. So please take a minute now to look at your badge and find the round colored sticker of your group and flip the badge over to see the order in which you will rotate through the circuit training. That's for today. Tomorrow, we will begin with a hearty breakfast at 7 and follow that by 3 informative workshops in each of the time slots. You're not required to stay in your color section tomorrow. It'll be a marathon morning with refreshment breaks on the go. All right. One thing else, just that many of our presenters obviously are talking about the Quality Assurance Manual. And hard copies of the manual are available for purchase at the conference desk And when you purchase the hard copy, you also get a USB stick of the manual that's in both French and English. Thank you for your patience with my introduction. Now let's get to the meat. I'd like you to meet our plenary speaker, Corinne Prince. Corinne has been a valued supporter of CAPLA for many years. She's been interested and involved in our programs and events, has demonstrated a willingness to help us promote RPL across the country, across Canada, and within the government of Canada. She has always seen the relevance of RPL as a cross-cutting strategy, not only for refugees and immigrants, although they certainly have focus at the moment for us, but for all Canadians seeking recognition for their skills and competencies in the labor force and beyond. Corinne first joined CIC almost 8 years ago as the Director General of Foreign Credential Referral Office. She has served as the Director General for the Integration Branch in the FCRO and with Citizenship and Immigration Canada since January 2013, and a role that has been expanded because of her connections to settlement partners across Canada. Between 2007 and December 2008, Corinne was the Director General of Labour Market Integration Directorate at IRCC and responsible for the work of the Foreign Credential Recognition Program, Labour Mobility, the Going to Canada Immigration Portal, the Skills and Labour Market Information Division, the National Occupational Classification System, and Occupational Information and Essential Skills Research. I think she knows what she's talking about. Corinne graduated with a Bachelor of Social Sciences from the University of Ottawa and received her Bachelor of Law degrees from the University of Calgary in 1991. Please join me in welcoming Corinne Prince.
Well, merci beaucoup, Patrick, and thank you very much. With all of those introductions, I'm not sure I'm qualified to be in this room today. There's so much talent here, and I'm just so excited about the boot camp model. I think you are on the cutting edge, and the shout outs and all of the events that are going to happen over the next 2 days, we'll be watching closely. Before I begin, I want to introduce my team member, Roshni D'Souza, who's going to be with you for the full 2 days. And so I won't be able to be here, but Roshni will be able to answer all your tough immigration questions. No pressure, Roshni. J'aimerais juste vous remercier encore une fois, Patrick, et vous expliquer que je suis tellement excitée pour 2 raisons. When Bonnie called me a few months ago, I was actually on holidays, and she asked if I would be your keynote this morning, and I jumped at that chance, really for 2 reasons. First of all, a chance to reconnect with folks that I haven't seen for a little while. And as I look across the room, Phil, Gail, Don Prasant from years ago, Constance, the folks from Seneca, some provincial colleagues who are working on FQR, Eileen, many immigrant-serving organizations, colleges, too many to mention, reg bodies, World Education Services, I'm sure is in the room here somewhere. So just a chance to reconnect with you all and hear about what you are actually doing in this space. But my second reason was because RPL, I've always thought was sort of a hidden gem. And I think what you are all doing on RPL is actually more important than ever before. And I've seen it in the past several months with the Syrian initiative. These folks need RPL more now than ever, and I'm so happy to hear Asa's shout out this morning. So I'm going to go to the second slide, Roshni. So you've all heard again and again and again, we've got a new Liberal government in the country, and immigration is an even higher priority than it was before. I couldn't believe that it could get higher on the government agenda, but it actually has. It's key to the growth agenda. There have been levels consultations all summer. It's key to the national housing strategy, to the national poverty strategy, let alone this government's number one commitment when they were first elected last November, which was to bring in 25,000 Syrian refugees to Canada. Now that commitment was clarified, let's say, after it was first made. So it was started out as 25,000 Syrian refugees by December 31st of 2015. And we did our best, but we did reach that goal by February 29th of this year. And then our minister will tell you that he's got a problem, probably the only immigration minister in the world with this problem, that Canadians were so interested and excited to welcome Syrians to Canada that our private sponsors wanted more. We used up our reserves and we sort of ran out of the refugees that we'd identified, and so he made a further commitment to bring in more refugees. And so before the end of this year, we will be welcoming another 15,000 Syrian refugees, mostly privately sponsored, to meet those demands of Canadian families and church groups and neighbors who've joined together to, prepare for their refugee. And so the total for Canada by the end of this year will actually hit 45,000, almost 45,000, 44,800, but who's counting? And so the Syrian refugee commitment was the top priority and the first one out the gate. But a new and interesting piece that's come out of this government is their interest in sharing the ministers' mandate letters with all Canadians. So they've put the ministers' mandate letters on the Government of Canada website. And, I've been a public servant for a while. I won't tell you how long, Patrick, but we used to have to go into a closed door room, and we got to look at the mandate letter that we were supposed to deliver on, but we couldn't get a copy. But now, this is available for everybody, and so I've just listed on my slide, because I can, all of, a number of the commitments in Minister McCallum's letter, and there's the little green check marks on the slide show you which commitments have already been addressed or met. And ministers have 2 years to complete these commitments, and our minister's trying hard to get them all done within 1 year. We're almost there, actually. So the refugees was one, doubling parent and grandparent applications was another, restoring the interim federal health funding, which was important for the Syrian refugee intake, lifting the Mexican visa. You might have heard a lot about that in the media. That would have been important to you, Phil. Eliminating conditional residence provision for new spouses, and increasing the maximum age of dependent children from 19 to 22. Those are a few that we've already met. But the one piece that you would have heard a lot about over the summer has been the ministers and in collaboration with his provincial and territorial immigration colleagues, interested in actually increasing the number of newcomers coming to Canada. Now, when we say the levels plan, that is a very formal legal plan that is tabled in the House of Commons, has to be tabled by law every November 1st. There's been a lot of interest from employers, from provincial and territorial governments, from communities to increase our immigration levels over time. And in fact, during the recent global recession, Canada was the only G8 country that maintained our immigration levels at a constant level. Other countries in the G8 either froze or reduced or stopped intake during the global recession, and we continued on at our rates. And we currently, this year, 2016, are bringing in about 300,000 newcomers to Canada. So this government is looking at continuing to focus not only on the humanitarian classes, so additional refugees, but also looking at a focus on the economic classes, and in particular looking at pathways from the temporary classes to permanent class. You know, international students, temporary foreign workers who've been here, who studied here, who have a Canadian credential, who've worked here and created a network and established themselves in Canadian communities, really make perfect Canadians. You know, they've already increased their language skills. They've, in working in Canadian firms, have the Canadian work experience that's so needed for employment. And so there's a real push to see how we can continue to ensure that the pathways from temporary to permanent are used to meet our increased levels. And I was just in Winnipeg yesterday and the day before. The minister and the provincial and territorial ministers had their meeting, and there was real interest right across the country for multi-year levels plans. So not just tabling a levels plan for 1 year, so November 1st of this year we'll be tabling it for the 2017 year, but to have a plan that would cover 3 forward years, to allow provinces and territories who count so much on those provincial nominee levels, as well as for the federal government to plan with more lead time and to work more collaboratively to bring in the kind of talent that is in demand just in time. I think we'll move to the next slide. So I've said that currently we're admitting about 300,000 newcomers a year, and over the summer, the minister has even said that he wants to increase that, maybe even moving to 1% of population. But a levels plan and this multi-year proposal is going to be going before Cabinet in the coming weeks, so we don't have a decision yet, but I can tell you there was real interest in Winnipeg from the provinces and territories around what the levels would be and how many PNPs they would get, and difficult to give that data to them before we know the overall level. But I think it's only going to go up. Now, we know, though, that about 67% of Canada's demographic growth currently comes from education, from immigration, and we are still dealing with economic pressures, technological advancements, the aging population, and globalization. So, you know, immigration certainly is a solution, and we seem to have the country moving in that direction. If we move to the next slide, Roshni. Having said that, as you well know, every day in your work, huge challenges remaining. Unemployment rates for recent immigrants are significantly higher than those for Canadian-born at all levels of educational achievement. And the lucky ones, the lucky newcomers, are in alternative careers, but maybe not all be using their skills. Some folks are underemployed, hopefully not unemployed, but it's still a challenge for us, and it's a collective challenge, I would say, given our various areas of responsibility. 24% of immigrants with fields of study that would normally lead to work in a regulated occupation were working in their trained professions, compared to 62% of the Canadian-born. So you see that difference, really, that gap needs to be narrowed. If we move to the next, actually before going there, I wanted to share with you as well a recent study by the Ontario Fairness Commissioner, where they were suggesting that foreign-born and educated nurses in Ontario who do not become certified are more likely to pursue lower-paid alternative careers, such as homemakers or nurses' aide or orderlies, as compared to the Canadian-born and educated who pursued healthcare management occupations. So this is a real example of, the pathways that become open to folks if they find themselves unemployed. And some of you in the room, I think, were actually at the conference board event, the Immigration Roundtable, that was it's here in Toronto yesterday and today. Conference board study is suggesting that Canada could gain $13.4 to $17 billion through better employed human capital resulting from enhanced learning recognition for Canadians and newcomer immigrants. So that is a lot of money in my books. And I think that just demonstrates that we could do better, we could do more. In terms of labor market integration, I won't spend a lot of time on this, you know this well, many barriers. Recognition of foreign qualifications still, despite all of the federal, provincial, territorial work, all of the work happening with our sector councils and regulatory bodies across the country, still we could be doing more. And I think RPL is becoming more and more of a solution, but I think we could still do more. And I think an opportunity for this, Patrick, maybe just in Winnipeg on Wednesday, the immigration ministers agreed that they would have a joint meeting or conference on foreign qualification recognition with their labor market colleagues, federal, provincial, territorial. So the two multilateral tables would meet together in 2017. And we're working closely with our colleagues at ESDC on that, and with both the Immigration Secretariat and the FLMM Secretariat. But interestingly, 8 of those immigration ministers around the table are also labor market ministers in their provinces and territories. And so they were all headed to Quebec City today and tomorrow for the FLMM meeting. So I think that might be an opportunity to get RPL on both of their agendas at the same time, and I just think it's a chance not to miss. So we'll move to the next slide. So what has IRCC been doing to respond to some of these challenges? Well, we introduced a selection system called Express Entry just under 2 years ago, and the whole intent of Express Entry was to become more responsive to labor market needs. Now, it's early days. I would say we've had a few kinks and bumps along the road, And we're still trying to calibrate it. In fact, it was a huge issue at the ministers' meeting in Winnipeg as well as to how we can continue to calibrate that. But just to give you a sense for some of you in the room who may not know about express entry in great detail, there have been changes made to the points system federally in implementing minimum language requirements, including an assessment of foreign credentials by third parties. This is something we call Educational Credential Assessment, or ECA, and it was introduced because historically our immigration officers around the world, in the 3 minutes, and it's literally 3 minutes or 5 minutes that they skim through an application to check that everything's there, that it's all legit, in that 5 minutes, they were assessing credentials of the individual for equivalencies and authenticity. Just not on. So educational credential assessment and World Education Services, I mention them because they were one of the leaders in this. We've designated a number of bodies and occupations as well to do this assessment for us, and our call out for this is open. It never closes. So if there are regulatory bodies in the room who want to apply to be designated for this purpose, we think that it can only help, because if the newcomer has their credentials assessed for the purposes of immigration through ECA, then for those that are designated, they're also using that same assessment for the purposes of licensure. And so the nation moves from a two-step process to a one-step process if we have the regulatory body in question actually doing the assessment both for immigration purposes and for licensure purposes, all in one process. So that has been recently a huge improvement, and particularly for our immigration officers around the globe, because all they do now is look for that assessment in the pile of the application, and they have confidence that it's been done by somebody who does this every day, who's a national authority on the issue. So it's not only authentic, but it's also providing an equivalency to the Canadian context. So we're not giving, I'll just choose any country in the world, let's say India. We're not giving, a 4-year equivalency to a degree in India that might only in the Canadian context be worth 2 years. Or vice versa. We're not undervaluing a foreign credential that should be at an equivalency. So this, in the FQR world, has been a huge game changer. Finally, we're giving more weight to employment offers and Canadian experience, which is great. And we've also, in the past few years in the department, created a new stream for skilled trades. That was introduced to meet labour market shortages in the trades, which until very recently, and still in pockets across the country, are there. So I'm not going to speak too long about this next slide. This slide just shows you the different areas of the settlement program. And I'm sure you know that the federal government provides settlement services right from pre-arrival up to the point of citizenship. So newcomers to Canada, and we're actually unique in the world that you have access to all of these services on the slide at no charge until you become a Canadian citizen. And the point there is that at the point of citizenship, you're a citizen, and so you access all of the services that all citizens access. But we've seen, and I think certainly in the area of language, as well as in the area of employment, I think we can do a lot more in terms of RPL. And so I look forward to hearing your views this morning and following up over the coming weeks. Our colleagues, I wanted to do a call out for our federal partners at ESDC. They too have done a lot of work in this area, and their existing programs are assisting with labor market integration of newcomers. But I think the one thing, and you know what they do, and it's here for, if you don't, you can access the slide after my presentation. But I think, and I wanted to do this for you, Bonnie, because Bonnie made a special request to my office when she sent the information about today's boot camp to my office. She actually sent us a copy of the manual, and she had a special request for me. She said, "Corinne, I want you to read the manual." So, my goodness, the wrath of Bonnie is upon me. So, I not only read the manual, Bonnie, but I wanted to particularly say congratulations. A national manual takes some time, and working with the federal government for many years, I know how hard it is to bring all of the players together and how much energy and enthusiasm and goodwill it takes. And so I wasn't surprised in a way that you've done it. You've all done it collectively. But just wanted to say congratulations. You've put Canada on the map, I think. And you'll tell me, I haven't researched in great depth whether other countries have a manual. But I look forward to hearing from you on that, and funding from our colleagues at ESDC for this. So kudos to ESDC. Finally, on slide 10, this just talks a little bit more about our working with other partners. I've spoken a lot about the federal government, the provinces, regulatory bodies. Kudos to the med lab techs and others who are doing really, really good work in this area. In terms of employers, I don't know if are there any employers in the room today? No. But sector councils and our immigrant employment councils, you're doing such good work, but every employer in Canada is not using RPL, so we've still got a ways to go. Municipal partners, we work closely through our local immigration partnership, something we call the LIPS. It's an acronym. But much more there too could be done, I think, to leverage, because those LIPs are so important for leveraging funding within communities. I don't know, Bonnie called me late last night because I'd left her a phone message at her hotel room, and I said, I just got goosebumps about what could happen, what more could happen on RPL across Canada. I mean, there's so many good pieces, but if you think of taking those and it being the sort of de rigueur at all levels and comprehensively everywhere, wow, that is a game changer. And I just think we need to think about that a little more. Slide 11 does just give you and I'll just spend 1 minute on this. This just updates you on what we're doing with our provincial and territorial colleagues multilaterally. So in terms of our settlement working group, we're working on helping immigrants succeed, focusing on 3 areas: employment and foreign qualification recognition, language outside of the workforce, and social connections. And why those 3? Those came out of a 20,000 immigrant study that was done that showed us where some of the gaps were. And so immigration ministers tasked us with focusing on those 3. There's been tremendous work. It's all coming to fruition in the next few months, and I'd be happy to come back, and we could even maybe crosswalk some of the gaps to RPL and see if RPL could be a solution to filling those gaps. I think that would be very exciting. The FQR working group, led by the FLMM, many of you are aware of that. They're working on, their focus currently is pre-arrival, assessment, workplace integration and communication, and that's all under the Pan-Canadian Framework on Assessment and Recognition of Foreign Qualifications that was approved by ministers in 2009. And finally, the Language Forum, which also I think is something that many of you know about and are involved with. Yves Saint-Germain, one of our directors, is currently working with the Language Forum on a pan-Canadian language strategy. And this is coming into this job, Patrick, a few years ago, I was getting briefed by Yves, and it looked like there was 1,000 flowers blooming on language. Everybody was kind of doing it differently. And that, that's okay. I mean, I don't think you need a one-size-fits-all. In fact, sometimes one-size-fits-all doesn't work. There's so many regional differences. But I do think that working together to avoid any duplication, to see how we can better coordinate our funding, fill the gaps, all while being innovative is well worthwhile. So that's what we're doing there. So in closing, on slide 12, and I've already said it again and again, I really think that RPL is the hidden gem. Canada is celebrating its 150th next year. So I would want to know from you, maybe a little challenge for you, what is your RPL legacy for the 150th? Or what can we launch on the 150th birthday to take RPL in Canada to the next level? I think you've probably got the experts in the room to tell you that.